What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. So, as a lot of you know who watch 2A videos, there's been a lot of drama on, what Guntubers are posting from, you know, the military guys or the operators or whatever, not wanting to train civilians. There's just a lot of drama in the 2A quote unquote community. And after, I watch all that stuff because I, I watch all that stuff. So, after watching all that stuff, to save you some time, I just wanted to give you some perspective from someone who has been in the military, from someone who has bought all the fancy gadgets, someone who also is a gun tuber who posts, stuff on guns and stuff like that. And just want to share some perspectives on what I've learned because I've had to reshift, refocus, and learn some hard truths about me and my habits when it comes to guns and all that this year. And again, just wanted to share some perspective. Just 5 things I've learned in the last, I've learned a lot of stuff in the last year and a half after refocusing and really being intentional with my training and what I'm doing. Um, just learned a lot. So, number one is we have to stop listening to military guys and cops when it comes to building SOPs for us as individuals for a SHTF scenario, for example. So, uh, from someone who's been in the military, I've shot more rounds now as a civilian in less amount of time than I ever did in the military, in the infantry. So a lot of guys in the military, they show up, they do their jobs, they go home. Not There's a very small percentage of guys in the military who actually care about guns the way that someone like you and me who are into guns the way we are. So just because someone's in the military does not mean that they're super specialized in guns and all this other stuff. It's not like the movies at all. Most people just show up for quals, whenever they have to do their qualifications and, they get their badge or whatever, and then they move on. Now, obviously, guys in different units, different MOSs have different, they shoot more than others, but for the most part, not a lot of shooting going on, especially when you're at, peacetime corps and peacetime military. There's not a lot of shooting going on. So I tend to tell people to not listen to those guys when it comes to you creating SOPs, standard operating procedures for yourself and your family when shit hits the fan. Because in the military, we have access to things that you are not going to have access to when stuff pops off. There's not going to you're not going to have your squad. You're not going to have platoon with you, air support, comms. You're not going to have none of that. It's just going to be you and the knowledge that you have and trying to do the best that you can to protect you, life, and the people that you love when shit hits the fan. So military tactics usually are in direct conflict of shit hit the fan scenarios, SOPs for individuals. Even a lot of military guys will tell you that a lot of the things that we do in the military, you won't really be doing when it's just you and you don't have access to all the stuff that they have access to. So it's good to get the information. It's good to learn about all that stuff. Yeah, that's great. But when it comes to creating your own SOPs for that particular purpose, it's not really a good idea to use a lot of that information because it usually doesn't translate over. Some of those things are in direct conflict with what you should be doing at a time like that. So, like I said, getting your knowledge up is great, but be mindful of application and usage. So, number two is have SOPs and train based on those SOPs. So if you don't have SOPs, and meaning, standard operating procedures, what you should and should not be doing based off of, and I'm assuming that this is for a shit hits the fan scenario because that's what we're all, usually preparing for, something like that were to happen. If you don't have any of those, you're lost in the sauce. Your what how do I explain this? Your ability to protect life and thrive in a scenario like that plummet if you don't have any. So, for example, for me, in a shit hits the fan scenario, I'm not taking any shots further than 100, 150 yards. I'm just simply not. It's just not something that I'm going to be doing or allowing myself to do or anybody around me to do, just because it's in direct conflict of my SOPs. I don't think that that is a wise thing to do, especially if it's just you and you're protecting your family and stuff like that. There's a lot of cons that come with taking shots further out than that. It's just not in my SOPs, like I said. So I train heavily based off of that. Is that saying that I don't train further than that? No, I do, but I'm mostly focused on what my SOPs are going to be and what I'm allowing myself to do and not do. Another thing is I'm not doing unnecessary CQBs. I know that that's a sexy thing to do. Um, if you have, if you ask guys that do CQB how to do it, they tell you if you don't have to do it, don't do it. So I do acknowledge that there may be scenarios where I need to potentially do that if we need some provisions, first aid or whatever, supplies, whatever, and it may just be you or one other person. But that's when you get that supplemental training. Um, I'm simply just not kicking doors down. It's just not the way it's going to be working. As a matter of fact, I think that's a hazard when it comes time to deal with the shit hits the fan scenario. Human beings, the way they operate. I mean, have you guys seen how people act when they thought they weren't going to get access to toilet paper? So something real like that were to happen and you have to fend for yourselves and protect your family and stuff like that, you have to be mindful of noise and how you're moving and taking unnecessary low probability shots, kicking doors in and stuff like that. You're not gonna have your team with you to be able to clear that. It doesn't work that way. So, and especially even if you have people with guns, you don't just put guns in people or let's go clear this. It's just people are gonna die. Everybody's gonna die. It's gonna be a mess. So, not kicking any doors down. My training is focused on cardio, and that's a big one. Cardio, being able to be physically fit to do a lot of this stuff. Cardio, being effective from 0 to up to 300 yards, because like I said, I'm not taking shots further than 100, 150 yards, but I want to be effective with my rifle up to double that if need be, comfortably. And transition drills, malfunction drills, a lot of the basics, essentially. So have SOPs, create them. Some people may feel comfortable about it, and they, shit hits the fan scenario, they are willing to take shots further than 300, 400 yards. To me, I don't see, there's a lot of cons to that in my opinion, and it's just not worth it as far as like how I want to move when something were to pop off. So it's up to you and your capabilities and what you're comfortable with and how you train. But if you have those SOPs, train based off of those SOPs and then sprinkle in supplemental training and all that other stuff. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Number 3 goes hand in hand with number 2, which is, once you have your SOPs, buy your guns and set up your guns and buy equipment based off of your SOPs. So how was your rifle zeroed and why? What barrel length are you choosing as your battle rifle or your shit hit the fan rifle, and why? Be intentional. Looks should really come last, and they should not affect your readiness when it comes to getting shit done. Essentially, it should be a plus that it looks the way it looks, but you're really looking to just focus on having equipment that fit your SOPs. So for me, for example, this is the rifle that I set up for that. It's a 14.5, and the way that I've laid it out is so that it follows directly in correlation with my SOPs and what I said earlier about taking certain shots and doing certain things and having certain abilities. And I'm very confident that with this setup, I can make that happen. I'm still waiting on my magnifier that I ordered. Ended up going with a Vortex one. I'll do a video on that when that comes in. But this rifle fits exactly what I'm trying to do as far as me and my SOPs, which is important because I feel like a lot of people buy rifles, put them away, buy things, and if something were to happen, when it comes down to take the rifle that they would take, there's a lot of conflict because one, they didn't train enough to know what they need at the time, and two, they're basically a liability because of that lack of training. So it doesn't really matter which rifle you take, and if it doesn't really matter, then why spend all the money buying all the expensive stuff and decking it out and all that other stuff? Might as well just buy a bunch of Diamondback rifles and then run irons or some basic optic and put it away if that's what you were doing. So buy and set up your guns based off on your SOPs and your abilities. So, and be mindful of the training that you need to be effective with the equipment that you're buying. Don't just buy things. I used to do that. I used to just buy things because they were cool, they look cool, and there's nothing wrong with buying things because they look cool and all that. But the majority of what happens is to most of us is the bulk of the budget ends up going to stuff like that, and then it leaves us little for training when it comes to ammunition, when it comes to certain things that you need for training, and actual gadgets and equipment that you would need for training, and then you kind of half-ass it and yada yada yada. So super important. And then 5 is equipment matters. And I'm hearing this a lot that equipment doesn't matter. That equipment matters. It's not everything, but it does matter. I will usually say that proven brands usually cost more. It is what it is. So like you'll see a lot of my stuff. You'll see Daniel Defense's, EOTech's, Trigicon. You'll see these same, Surefire. You'll see these same brands over and over because they're proven, they cost a little bit more, and it's just a name of the business. And this is across the board when it comes to things. Usually the proven products cost a little bit more, and that's why the phrase buy one, cry ones exists. So that does not, however, mean that you need to just buy the expensive things thinking that they will give you that edge when something were to happen. It won't. Your abilities will be your abilities, whether you're carrying a $5,000 setup or you're carrying a $800 setup. So be mindful of that. What I will say is, I do believe that comfort in training yields more training. And what I mean by that is, the more comfortable you are in training and whatever equipment you're using during your training that makes it easier and more comfortable for you to train, it will yield more training because you're more likely to come back and keep training and doing it over and over again. Because let's be real, guys, training can get repetitive, training can suck sometimes, and even just doing stuff over and over, like dry firing transition drills over and over. I've done hundreds of them back to back to back, and afterwards my hands hurt like hell, or like I'll have certain cuts or whatever from doing stuff over and over. Like, training sucks. It is, a lot of times training sucks. The fun part of the whole gun thing is actually shooting the guns, and that's the part that goes by the fastest. So most of the training, a lot of times it's repetitive and it sucks, and whatever equipment makes that easier or more comfortable, in my opinion, will yield more training. And that's important because with the training, we want muscle memory. That's what kicks in when you need the training to kick in. So yeah, if you get something that makes training more comfortable, somebody may say, oh, toughen up or whatever, whatever. But in reality, when shit pops off, they're not going to need that comfortable equipment. They already have the muscle memory. They're just going to do what they need to do regardless. Adrenaline kicks in. You don't really feel anything. You're just doing what you've already trained to do. And the more you've trained, the more the muscle memory works and the more efficient you are and effective. So I didn't used to believe in that. I used to, be in the belief that you tell people, get what you need, spend some of your money on ammo. But after this year, I've made some tweaks to that. So for example, I didn't buy a lot of things for Black Friday and all that because the Black Friday deals were kind of mid this year. Did buy some things like another EOTech that was a great deal, not because it's an EOTech, but mostly because I'm trying to streamline my equipment and guns in the house. So I just want everything to be similar. I want people in my household to be familiar with the equipment that we're using. I don't want a bunch of different brands, a bunch of different ways to operate different things. I just want to streamline things. So recently started using EOTech, love it. So now we're transitioning to everything being an EOTech plus a magnifier or just an EOTech, and found a great deal. So I pulled the trigger on that. Other things I got were rest bags. I don't know how many times I've gone to the range and I've used someone's rest bag or borrowed it for shooting, and it's just comfortable. It's just it makes the whole thing a lot more comfortable, a lot easier. And I just wanted to get my own finally. Another thing was a pistol sighting stand. I know I spoke about that in Zero video. Yeah, you can borrow someone else's to do it, but having your own so that you always have access to it anytime you get a new pistol or you need to re-zero for whatever reason, you have it there. And plus, teaching my kids, teaching my household how to use it, having that equipment there, to me is worth it. A spotting scope. I usually used binoculars, but the one I use them for fishing. Now, once you get to the 2, 3, 400 yards, it kind of sucks. It's kind of comfortable. But when you use the spotting scopes, it's super comfortable. I can use it by myself. I can use it with a spotter. And I just decided to pull the trigger and get one for myself. And other little things like a bunch of Ranger bands, got new gloves, and a rangefinder, which it was long overdue. A lot of us, including myself, really underestimate how far things are, and just having that in your arsenal and using it in the training and just having it in like my bug out stuff just in case is a plus in my opinion, and it was a great buy. It's worth every penny. So, and this applies to equipment and stuff that you put on your rifles. Like, for example, if you're thinking about getting a $150 buttstock and you feel as though that it's so comfortable and you love using it, and every time you pick up your rifle, you just want to use it more and more, and it leads to more training. Yeah, hell yeah, go get it. You know, it's, to me, that's an investment that's worth it. Now, if you're just gonna buy the $150 buttstock to just put it on because it looks cool and then you're gonna put the rifle away, in my opinion, you're better off just buying the $60 buttstock, put it on there, and then putting the rifle away, because your efficiency and your performance is going to be the same whether you have the $150 one or the $60 one. It's all up to you and your training. So with that being said, the whole point of this is to constantly learn and improve on things that you've learned and things that you're actually doing. And without the training and consistency, you won't know what you need to improve and learn on. So, you know, in sales, we always say always be closing, but I also like to say always be learning. ABL, always be learning. Your mind is a computer. It's a supercomputer. And that's why I disagree with the whole, we need less Guntubers. We need more Guntubers. Post your videos, post your perspective, your thoughts, what you found, your training, all that stuff. Because the more content we consume, in my opinion, the more data we have, better baseline we have as far as whatever topic, whatever it is that we are learning about. So that's why perspective matters. So yes, consume that operator content. Yes, consume that military content. Yes, consume that training content. Yes, consume that entertainment content that gets put out that's in the 2A community. Yeah, consume all of it. In my opinion, you form a baseline of what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, what you like, what you don't like, instead of having a limited view and thoughts on the topic at hand. So you're just a more rounded individual with the more information that you have. So I don't think everybody is right and I don't think everybody is wrong. I think most people aren't training enough, in my opinion. Actually, I think I only gave you guys 4. This last one is important as well, which is classes are great, but from what I've learned, most people don't dry fire enough and train enough to warrant going to them just yet. So, like I said, shooting is the easiest part of this whole thing. It's the easiest part. It's the easiest part to learn, especially if you're doing it standing still in a prone or whatever, nothing shooting back at you. There's no elevated stress levels. It's the easiest part of this whole thing. What's hard is consistently being able to run your equipment no matter what conditions, rain, tired, stress level, issues, malfunctions, whatever. That's hard. And most people simply do not handle their equipment enough to be able to consistently do that. And you don't need classes to do that. So I think there should be a bare minimum requirement as far as like performance to even consider going to certain classes and a lot of the classes. I think proficiency in the basics, build drills, transition drills, stuff like that, um, is should be a base requirement to have before you even consider going to some of these classes, because it can save you time and it saves the instructor time from having to waste time teaching you certain things that you should already know, but you don't because you don't train enough. And a lot of those things you don't need to go to a class to learn. You have YouTube and you could be doing it for free at home. So most of that stuff you do not need a class to do. Classes should be supplemental. That's why when I mentioned CQB earlier, if there's a time that I needed to do a single man CQB or two man CQB, that's a class that I would look into taking, and furthering my knowledge on that, because I can take that information and then come back at home and keep practicing it at home. I can teach it to people in my household, and then maybe I can go back to another supplemental class for two man so I can learn that, and then come back and teach it to my buddy who then can teach it to, and then that's how the information gets spread around and more of us are knowledgeable on stuff. So should we go into classes? Yeah, sure. But are you doing enough of the basics to warrant you going to a class? If you had to go to a class and do certain things like build drills, transition drills, malfunction drills, all the basics, and you had to do it under time, would you be able to do it consistently and not embarrass yourself? There's plenty of videos out there of guys doing those drills that they give you and they show you their actual times, and you can create, because I've done this, you can create a baseline of what an okay time would be for someone who does practice it enough, who does train enough. So if you can't hit those times, I wouldn't recommend you go into a class until you're able to. That's just my opinion. Saves you the embarrassment, the heartache, and saves the instructor time. And everybody's on the same page, because we shouldn't be focusing on the basics in a lot of these classes unless it's one of those basic classes. But I'm talking about advanced rifle classes, other classes that are you're maneuvering your rifle under movement, stuff like that. You should have the basics down. So, and the problem is a lot of us aren't proficient enough with the basics just yet to warrant spending all that money to go do that, because what's going to happen is you're going to realize that at that class you already spent the money, then you need to go back to then refocus to then go back. It's just to save you the time. Just get that basic stuff out of the way, get proficient, be consistent enough, and then make that investment, because a lot of those classes are not cheap. They're not cheap at all. So I understand both sides of the coin about not wanting to train certain civilians, because again, a lot of civilians don't put in the time. Not saying everybody does, but from what I've seen and from friends and all that, when they're around guns and stuff like that, there's just not enough training. And you can usually tell the way they're manipulating the rifle, the way they're manipulating the pistol. It's just apparent, and it's just saves a lot of time. So I believe that's five things I've learned, and I'm going to continue to learn and sharing the things I've learned, and hopefully we can all learn together. And that's the goal of my channel, and that's what I want other people to do as well. That way we're all learning together and moving forward. And I know a lot of people don't believe that we have a community, which at times it doesn't feel like it. But I think, again, it's cheesy, it's corny, but sometimes you got to be the change you want to see. And if nobody does it, then we're never going to get there. So, which is why being vulnerable and sharing what you're learning, sharing your mistakes, sharing your path is important, because you're showing other people that, they're able to do it as well. And then you're just allowing other people to shine and share their light with you. And it's just better. It's better for our community. It's better for all of us as a group. So all I wanted to share today. Thank you for watching the video. As always, appreciate the love and support. Still working on a bunch of videos, just, with the holidays and all that. Haven't gone to the range as much. Did go to the range last week, shot this. It was a good time. Shot this at 200 and it was planking just fine. So more, MC9 video coming. Foxtrot 9 video coming. Waiting on the suppressor for that still. I'm waiting on a lot of things, but more videos coming. Appreciate the love and support. We're finally in December. Year's almost over, so hopefully we all have we're working on our goals for next year, working on what we want to be better at next year. And yeah, I hope that everybody has a good rest of the year. If I don't see you guys, I'll probably post a couple more videos, but if I don't, have a good rest of the year. And again, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Deuces.